Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Welcome back to Southeast Radio's Business Matters with me, Karl Fitzpatrick. Well, last week, the Port of Waterford announced that it has partnered with Maersk and BG Freightline to provide a new route to Rotterdam. Frank Ronan, the Chief Executive of the Port of Waterford, joins me now to discuss what this new route will mean for both the port and the region as a whole. Frank, perhaps you can provide us with an overview of the port's current activities and capacity.
Sure, and it's something, Karl, that the whole country is very focused on the last couple of years, ports and capacity. Port of Waterford, funny, people think about ships and boats. We're actually an agribusiness, Karl, and if you look at what we do, very much tied into to our agricultural partners on the supply side. So what comes over our quays in the main bulk products, animal feeds and fertilizers are the biggest things we handle, and we would put over our quays in a year 1.5 to 1.75 million tons of bulks. So animal feeds, fertilizers, and also cement products, steel, timber, etc. But certainly the supporting the agri side is key. We also have a small container operation where we handle containers on a load-on, load-off basis, what we call LOLO. A couple, 2 ships a week up to, before this announcement, running from here to Rotterdam on a short sea route. So that's for traffic that's actually coming from or leaving Ireland, but destined for Europe only, i.e. it's not going further afield, and that's an important differentiator. On that, we handle maybe 15,000 containers a year on that. So small in comparison to Dublin, but important, and an important start, and something that we used to be bigger in the past.
And what level of spare capacity is currently available in the Port of Waterford?
Waterford in the past would have handled 4 to 5 times what we currently do at the moment. So there's the capacity here to handle another 45, 50,000 laden loads here in or out of the port. So a nice resource, an important resource, and a resource we'd love to see working. On the bulk side, it's grown dramatically in the last couple of years. So we've kind of gone from well below 1 million tons up into we're heading for the 2. There's growth, we think, there for another 10, 15 years without having to, or certainly space to grow. So capacity there as well. And after that, I just refer you to our master plan, which we're currently out in consultation about, which sets out, our stall for the next 25 years in terms of our infrastructure. And depending on the growth scenarios, we see ourselves, investing over that 25 years up to 60 million euros on a kind of on direct provision of infrastructure on top of our normal ongoing capital investment spend.
And talk us through that master plan over the next 25 years. How will that change the face of the Port of Waterford?
I suppose it'd be nice to kind of give you a dramatic picture, but our master plan, in my mind, it's terribly sensible, Karl. It's designed to really meet what we think is what the demand we see possibly coming. So it's driven by demand. We don't see a need to do something in the immediate next couple of years, but over time, depending on how the use of the facility picks up, there is scope certainly to do work on the river, which will see us widening channels and deepening channels, and potentially doing some work that could have us lessening the requirement for some of our dredging works that we do every year. We do a fairly extensive amount of dredging to keep the channels open in Waterford every year. Part of what we do, and it's part of it's not that it's an issue, but it's a cost that maybe we could avoid, and we could perhaps provide a better product, a more consistent product, if we could do other things with it. So it's about channels, about navigation, it's about width, size. It's about doing developments that are going to allow us to bring slightly bigger ships, slightly deeper ships, bigger cargoes, more efficiencies into the port. We will never be a huge European port, and we will never be taking 300-metre ships up here. But we can cater for 20,000 tons, 25,000 ton ships, that sort of levels of cargo, and and we'd like to go a little bit further, perhaps. Now, so that's on the navigation side. There's also scope here to extend the quays and build further quays.
And it's been well reported that Waterford Port is quite a difficult port to navigate your way in and out of.
We work very hard to make sure that we have first and foremost a good channel, and we keep those channels open. It is an estuary port, so it's not like Rosslare, and Rosslare is ideal for the rural work that it does. You basically pull into the port, out of the port, you're on the sea straight away. It takes an hour and a quarter to get from Dunmore up to where we are. That is maybe a disadvantage, and we have to work on that. It does limit us in some ways, but it gets us to the heart of where we need to be. It gets us into our rail connection, which is here, comes into the quay. It gets us onto the N29, which is connected into the motorway network. So you could say we could have an easier to reach port someplace off of Dunmore, but you won't have all the other stuff there that you need. So there's always an arbitrage in these things, Karl, and it's a balance. And I think there's a very useful balance here in Waterford.
And Frank, how important is the rail connection there in Waterford?
It's in theory, it's hugely important, and in future, I think it's going to be really important. At the moment, we don't have an active service. We had an active service up to 6 months ago. It was a terrible loss to see it going, and I think in the context of where we are now, where the environmental issues are right on the top of all of our agendas, that's a service that can actually take trucks off of the road. It can actually connect us to the northwest of the country. It can take carbon out of the supply chain. It's the right thing to be happening, and we're working very hard to try and make sure that that's rejuvenated. I think it's an important facility, and it's a shame to see it underused at this stage. That won't last long, please God.
Last week it was announced that the Port of Waterford and Maersk had agreed a new route to Rotterdam. What can you tell us about this new route, Frank?
At the start, we have an existing route to Rotterdam, and we talked about short sea. This is the first time in the southeast where there is what we call a deep sea connection. So this is for traffic that's going to leave Ireland with the intention of going much further afield, i.e. Asia, Africa, the States. Currently, that traffic in the southeast will actually pass our door. Normally, I drive to Dublin or other Cork, but mainly Dublin, jump on a ship, go to a Rotterdam or an Antwerp or a Southampton to be transferred on again to a bigger ship to move on. So we now are offering a service from here that you can go straight from the ship off to those intermediate ports, those big European ports, those big hubs, and join the deep sea fleet. So what we're doing effectively is taking out that run to Dublin. So great to have that connection. There's a lot of big exporters in the southeast, Karl, who market and sell their products on the global stage, not just in Europe. And this is something that I think really ticks a lot of boxes, and we hope it could be very successful.
And specifically, apart from agribiz, what type of freight will you be targeting for this route?
We will certainly, and we'll absolutely tip our cap. The agri is key, and milk is key in all of that, and all the powders and in the various forms, etc., are important. There's a big pharma operations happening, working away here in the southeast, and they're key, very important. We didn't mention meat, but that's very important as well. So those are the areas I think where we see the kind of the animal related products as well are important. So look at agri, pharma. And then whatever, I mean, there's a myriad of stuff going on, but those are the areas where we focus.
So there's currently a shortage of empty containers here in Ireland. So will this be alleviated now as a direct result of this new route?
Probably the new route, and we would say, by the way, that we worked very hard for 5 years and then we got lucky, and the number of stars had to align for this to happen. And one of the stars was really the availability of empty containers in the Liverpool area, and the opportunity for Maersk to bring those across here. And into an area where there's a deficit of containers. The southeast is primarily export driven, so therefore we have to get empty containers in here to support that business. So it was the availability in the northwest of the UK of the equipment that was one of the factors that made this, I suppose, opportunity possible and stimulated the new route.
And what was involved in bringing this new route to fruition?
We'd love to be on the radio and say, Karl, it's all down to our hard work and our charm and our marketing. But the reality is we're a port, we facilitate trade. It was down to, I suppose, Maersk seeing the opportunity, wanting to support their existing customer base in the southeast, hoping to expand that existing base, seeing an opportunity by coming through here. And also the shipping company, very important. BG is the partner in this, we haven't mentioned a lot, saw an opportunity to send the ship in here. So you need to get the shipping company out, the ship into the port, and you also got to get the container providers, the global shippers involved. And the port then will be, the bit that we run is the bit we will facilitate that. And our trick really is to make sure we're not awkward in the conversation.
And how proactive are you in sourcing new routes between Waterford and elsewhere?
And again, I suppose I just admitted, Karl, we don't have the ability to actually make these things happen. I think we facilitate. So we would spend time marketing the port, making sure that people that are in the business are aware of the opportunities. So it's about communicating, it's about marketing, it's about reminding people we're here, but letting people know that we can do a good job and being generally supportive and creating the conditions, I suppose, for success. And we've spent a lot of time creating those conditions. It's great to see maybe something's shaken out here that could work very nicely.
So, Frank, what is the frequency of this new route to Rotterdam, and is it something that you hope will increase over time?
The frequency on this will be a once-a-week service. Carl, and it's a bit like Dublin Airport is hugely successful because you have lots of opportunities. Dublin Port's a bit the same, so we won't get huge frequency in the southeast. There isn't the level of population, of traffic, of business to actually support that. But I think if this service kind of gets the sort of volumes we'd like to see it getting, it'll be a very solid service. And if you time your supply chain to get on the ship here on a Saturday, you'll be in Rotterdam in a day and a half, and you'll be joining the motherships to head off to around the world. So it'll be a very effective route to market, and a very quick and efficient route to market. Takes a lot of trucks off the road, Carl. To take some costs out of the system, and significant lump of costs out of the system, and allow people to get to the market that bit quicker. So very nice, potentially very nice service.
And of course, Frank, Rotterdam is Europe's largest port, and it's often seen as the gateway to the rest of the world.
And it is, but it's not the only one, Carl, in fairness. I mean, Southampton's a huge port. Hamburg's probably too far away. Le Havre is there. Antwerp is there. So there's some, there are a number of them, but certainly Rotterdam is certainly the best known and huge in what it does.
And with Brexit looming on the horizon, is it part of the port's plans to prepare for the realities of a post-Brexit landscape? And in doing so, will that see you partner with other ports right across Europe?
What I think is going to happen, Carl, in that, and depending on how it goes, for a start, it's all bad news, and anything that's bad for our stakeholders and the people that we support in their businesses is bad news for us. And what we do is reflected in what happens in the wider economy. What we think may happen, depending on circumstances, there may be a shift towards load on, load off containers may become that little bit more attractive for some operations, and people will look at their supply chains and say, look at, rather than sending a truck across here with all the kind of the things that brings, i.e. going across the land bridge with numbers of different customs checks, psychosanitary checks, et cetera, and the issues on carbon, on road mileage, on drivers, it may just make sense to maybe switch some cargoes to low, and therefore we could see a pickup in our business by people just making those choices. Linking with ports, look, we'd know the ports certainly along that channel, right from the French ports and the Low Countries, and they'd know us, and we all keep in touch. We're all looking for the opportunity, I suppose, Carl. It's part of what we do.
And in relation to this new route to Rotterdam, what commitment have you received from BG Freightline and Maersk in respect of the new route?
That's a kind of an interesting question, and I think I've answered it earlier insofar as I've pointed out to you that we don't bring we're a facilitator of trade. And it's part of what we do is to actually make sure that we're not difficult in making these things happen. So if I was trying to get these guys to commit to a kind of a 5-year contract, and which I think is where you're going, and promise to do X, Y, and Z, all I'm doing is making the wall and the protections bigger, and making the whole business case harder to meet. So we've made ourselves very simple to do business with, Carl, and these guys will come and do business if there's business here to be done, and we'll facilitate it. What these guys need at the moment is volume, and if they get the volume, get the support in the market in the southeast, and certainly there's a number of people stepping up to the mark here and saying, look, this is something that we think is right for a number of reasons for their businesses, then this will work. And if it doesn't work, we all have the right to walk away, Carl. So nobody's handcuffed into this. This is I don't see a way that business would have happened if we tried to handcuff it.
And Frank, who is responsible for marketing this new route? Is that the Port of Waterford, or is it solely the responsibility of BG Freightline and Maersk?
We think it's all of our responsibility, which is why I'm on the radio to you now at this point talking. So we take a role in promoting this because these guys are our partners. We want them to succeed. So we will spread the word, and we will do what we can to encourage people to use the port and use the facilities and the services in the port. And we certainly want to get them up and running. But after that, it's a business-to-business operation, Carl, and it's up to themselves. They will know their customer base, they'll know their existing customers, they'll know where they need to go, and they will work hard to do that. So behind the scenes, there's plenty of people running around, having conversations, understanding each other's businesses, seeing where there's opportunities, and getting stuck in. But the port will support it at every stage in whatever way we can.
And as you look out over the next 5 years for the Port of Waterford, Frank, what do you see as the greatest challenge facing you?
There's challenges in every day in what we do, and I see our agenda in what we do changing dramatically. And I think the focus, certainly on the environmental side of the business and how we interact, is becoming really key. And certainly, if we want to actually do work in our estuaries and how we interact with the environment and how we do that work, I think it's becoming more and more important. And that's, I just see that as being a huge issue over the next number of years, and rightly so. There's a really important piece of work to be done there by us all. Not even going to have the Brexit conversation with you. Karl, because I suppose we're all tired of it and we just don't know at this stage. But taking that aside and saying, look, I think the environmental work is a huge part of not challenge, but just something that we have to get our heads around, and we really have to react to it.
And Frank, I know you're a proud Wexford man, and so on that basis I'd like to get your opinion on Rosslare Europort. What do you think needs to be done out there to develop that infrastructural asset?
Well, I'm sitting out here in the Port of Waterford, which is based, by the way, in South Kilkenny, and I am a proud Wexford man. We have a very clear strategy here that we're very unfussy about the county jersey, and we're a regional player. We regard Rosslare as a sister port and a regional player, and we see what they do as being complementary to what we do. Their business is about rural and passengers. We're in the low and boat business, and I think the two ports together provide a heck of a service for the southeast, and both are important. So we see there's a bit of a brotherhood thing going on there, Karl, and I think they're doing a good job. I think they've gotten the sort of press in losing some services, but that's a commercial piece, and there, for the grace of God, go I. So I would be very careful about that. We're very proud of the service we have. We're delighted to have a new one, but different circumstances could have changed that, and we could have lost one as well. So look what I do see happening is we see huge pressure on the Dublin infrastructure, and therefore the ability of ourselves and Rosslare to stand up and say that, look, here's two ports. We both have some spare capacity. We're both very good at what we do. I think their story is very similar to ours, Karl, in a nutshell.
If you were poised with taking over as the general manager of Rosslare Europort, where would your priority be?
I'd have to ask Glenn that. I give him a ring now straight after.
It's a very diplomatic answer now, Frank.
I actually read something in a magazine this morning, and he was setting out the strategy and what they're doing, and I'm not going to argue with what Glenn has set out there. I think there's a good plan there, and I think those guys just need to get stuck in and get on with it, and I think it's important, for us all in the southeast to see that Irish Rail are making a commitment to Rosslare Europort and making a commitment to invest and spend. I think that's all good news.
There's a lot being said about, of course, should a port be run by a rail company?
Yeah, and I know, and it's all very local down there, Karl. What I would say, I think a better debate, by the way, and one to keep an eye on is that ports, I think, are important changeover points. But we're only links in the chain, but we're actually all owned by the same shareholders. So if you follow my shareholding back for the company that I work for, the Minister for Transport and Minister for Finance are shareholders. And the same is actually true of Irish Rail. So we actually have the same parenthood. We're actually working for we're on the same team at the end of the day. So these are state assets. And I think important that they stay state assets, because as an island, allowing any kind of, I think it's important the state keeps control of that, Karl. It's a personal view. But it comes around and again, because these things kind of say, are you for sale or what's going on? So in principle, I think it's important that these are state assets. The ownership and the governance, yeah, look, is it all? There's different things. I suppose there's history and all that, and could it be different? Maybe it could, but that's another day's discussion.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Frank Ronan from the Port of Waterford, and we wished him every success with their new route to Rotterdam.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.